is the legendary Adam Clayton.
The most obvious question to ask a bass player is, what do you do?
I'm a little nervous tonight, but at least I know who I am.
Yeah. You're just off the road.
Since November, yeah. In fact, I think we were in the 3 Arena and we were hoping you might come along, so...
Yeah, there was awful traffic in Galway that night. I wasn't able to make it. When do you need to tour again? Or do you ever need to tour?
Do you mean with, like, you know, that kind of itch that needs to be scratched?
Yeah.
I don't know. It'll be when we make a record. You know, when you're excited about songs, or you know, we get fed up of being around each other for a year or so whenever we're making a record, and we feel like we've got some songs to go back out on the road with. And, you know, when you feel you're wanted, sometimes you don't want to go out there, you know, when people feel you've only just gone away.
Is there a lot of pressure in being in U2 in terms of trying to be popular?
Not anymore. You know, it's you know, now. I mean, for me, it's like amazing that we've had. I mean, don't tell anyone. 40 years of being in this band that kind of we grew up in Dublin. We had these dreams about, you know, making records, touring the world, and that was just for one album. And now it's 14 or 15 albums, and we're still doing it. So, utter gratitude, you know, that I feel like I've got friends all over the world. There is nothing quite like being able to bump into someone, absolute strangers that you don't know, and they tell you the most intimate things about themselves in a way where they just want to share something with you. They feel they know you, and you go, thank you. You know, this is the only job, I think, where that happens. It happens to you. I mean, I'm sure you meet people and they go, I just have to tell you this thing. And you hear these amazing things of sometimes it's what your songs or your work has done for people, or it's just stuff they tell you. And that's hard to give up, you know. I wouldn't want to give that up.
I'd be a massive fan of the band, but also a lot of things I'm very curious about. And I suppose everybody in Ireland probably has an opinion on U2 and stuff like that. Can you tell me how the money has changed you? Is it a tension in your life or anything like that?
You know, I think it's always a question when when you experience success on that level, financial success and a career success, an adjustment has to take place. And I'm not sure if we've always kind of dealt with it as well as we can. It's allowed us to live amazing lives. It's allowed us to experience amazing things. And we've been very lucky because we've been able to do great things with it. I mean, one of the things that we're most proud of as a band is the kind of music generation initiative that the Irish government and ourselves have been able to achieve here in Ireland. And there are those things where you can just occasionally, you know, make a difference.
Can you tell me about that?
We met this amazing woman called Rosaline Malloy, and who told us that, you know, there was very little funding or money for music classes for people in school, for children in school. We had to start small because it was based on how much money you could put into it, and gradually we got 2 or 3 counties, and it's been rolled out for kids across the country. So it's stuff like that where you see children from all around the country that didn't have access to music tuition, expressing themselves through music, having access to music. And in some ways, more than anything else, that's the proudest achievement for the band and myself.
Really?
Absolutely, you know.
How, in terms of creating new work, to what lengths do you have to go to as artists to find the place where the original new music comes from? Like, for example, like, I think Unforgettable Fire is such an important album to me. It seemed to me that at that stage, you two, I think you were taking chances. There was something very strange going on with that album that seemed to work. It was kind of incoherently coherent or something. And it spoke of spirit. I'm so curious about how you access that creativity. What do you have to do?
You know, you have...
And are you prepared to pay the price each time to do it?
I think so. I think it's not worth it if you don't do that. In some ways, for me, each record it's like a progress report of how far you've come in your life, how are you doing. And music is a mystical thing. You can't dial it in. You have to be able to connect with people. And sometimes a song like One, you know, if you were a musicologist and examined why that worked, you'd say, but yeah, it doesn't quite have the right structure, but it had something. It had that thing that you mentioned. The songs on Unforgettable Fire, one of my favorite records, they have something. There's an inarticulateness to it that just allows the spirit to soar. And we are part intellect, part spirit, part physical. And music seems to water the spiritual part of us.
But is there a sense that you put yourselves under an awful lot of pressure to be successful, to be relevant, and that sometimes that desire for commercial success can put too much pressure on the adventure, and that the kind of trying to be successful is a very different adventure to trying to explore?
Well, yeah. I mean, we're not part of a knitting circle. You're trying to work in an area where being successful is one aspect of it. You know, you want people to be interested, you want to be relevant, you want to have some kind of a cultural connection. Now, U2 has, you know, we've been through various different cycles. I don't know what the next cycle is going to be, and maybe being successful or commercial in that sense is going to be less important to us. But it's, you have to, you know, art and commerce, there's always a little bit of a rub. And I think we've come through it pretty well, actually. When we put out songs like With or Without You, they were, at the time, they were not obvious songs that the radio was going to play. Yeah. So we do tend to, we try to walk that line of connecting, but also things that are fresh to your ear. And that is part of the challenge. You know, it's the difference between fine art and commercial art, I guess. Are you, I mean, it's wonderful to hear you speak. You don't often. Well, you know, it's great to be here on my own. I'm getting a very strong sense of Leonard Cohen off you. That'll be the hair. But think I'm taller.
But that sense of calm and gentleness and manners, you know.
You know, I wasn't always like that. You know, I was a brat. You know, I couldn't wait to get out of school quick enough. I think you and I have similar experiences there. We were in boarding schools. I hated it. And, you know, the world was too small for me. I wanted to get going. And I was incredibly lucky because I left this kind of somewhat removed boarding school, and I met these three amazing guys in Mount Temple Comprehensive. You know, my first term there, I thought, I'm going to be beaten up. I'm the guy arriving in the middle of the year. You know, I come from Malahide. I've got a posh accent. They're going to hate me. And I thought, I'm just going to try and get on with everybody and, you know, make myself stand out a little bit. And I didn't get beaten up too much. I met these three guys. They were interested in forming a band. And it turned out one of them was a great singer, one of them was a great guitar player, and one of them was a great drummer. So we took on the world. I mean, back in 1976 in Dublin, if anyone can remember, you know, it was a dark, grim city. The pirate radio was just beginning to kind of make it seem interesting. It was the 3-day week. It was the petrol crisis. There wasn't a lot going on for you if you were sort of 17 or 18. And we threw ourselves into the band. Because I didn't have any academic ability, I became the manager. Briefly. And we found Paul McGuinness, and then he became the real manager. And we just worked really hard. But we worked really hard at what we believed in, which was that music could be our thing. You know, we could connect with people, and we tried to go to. We looked about going to the UK, and we thought, no, we don't really fit in there. You know, it was all a bit grim and indie, and we thought, no, we'd go to America. And we sort of leapfrogged, and we focused on America, and we found that, you know, Americans were actually quite nice people, and they had this great music tradition, and they liked Irish people. And we said, okay, we'll spend some time here. And it grew from that. And to go back to your original question, success very much went to my head. I think if you get everything your heart desires by really, we were making records by the time we were 20. By the time we were 25 and 26, we could pay our rent no problem. We owned cars. We could travel. And by the time the Joshua Tree hit, we could buy houses. Now, anyone I've met that has experienced success and fame in that way and in those years, it takes them a long time to recover from it. And, you know, that sounds like a complaint, but that's just what happens. You know, you lose your sense of yourself. You lose a sense of reality. And I was kind of very unhappy. So I drank and drugged and got myself in tabloid newspapers and embarrassed kind of everyone I knew and myself. But, you know, you come through it, you learn from it, and maybe that's what young men do anyway, you know. But I think I also realize that, you know, to want to do this, you know, you've got to be a little bit different in the head. And I find that even though, drink was the main problem for me, even though drink was the thing that brought me down, I still have to really work quite hard at keeping my sanity on and off the road. And my thinking can take me to bad places. You know, my thinking is not always reliable. And again, it's great having 3 other guys who can kind of check you sometimes, and we check each other.
How does that manifest itself, that kind of that dark energy is the wrong word, but that kind of vulnerable, structureless mood?
I think it's just the internal talk that happens, and you know, any kind of research I've gone into about addiction, and that sounds like I read lots of books about it. I didn't read lots of books about it, but it seems that addiction, you know, manifests itself in many different ways. Partly it's your family of origin, you know, what happens in your family of origin, you know, whether you were nurtured or whatever. And partly it's whether you had a childhood trauma, and that childhood trauma doesn't necessarily have to be losing a family member or whatever. It can be a number of different things.
Yes.
And it can perhaps be separation from parents or in other ways. So I think once you have that in your DNA, that you know, you don't feel comfortable, you feel restless, you feel questioning, you feel irritable, you're not sure what to believe. Once you have that programming, it's really hard to undo it. And I think that's what I went out into the world with.
Does time on stage give you a break from that?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say that the 2 hours on stage when we're performing is great, because I know exactly what I'm doing and I know why I'm there, and I don't question it. I don't have time to think about it. It's that old cliche of being totally in the moment, and that's, I can only be doing what I'm doing at that moment, and then and also you're doing it with these 3 men that you've known for a long time, and they know you. So that is, again, going back to the very beginning of where we came into this, that is the most amazing thrill, and that is the most amazing reward, to be able to perform concerts. And nowadays I feel like, you know, you two are just the reason why people gather. Once people gather, something else happens. Yeah. You know, there's an event, there's a party, and, you know, we're just the warm-up for that.
I get a sense of, like I said, a sense of kindness off you.
Well, thank you, I'll take that. I think
a kind of easygoing gentleness, you know. And it's funny then, I suppose it just makes, because you come across as being so sincere, it makes the times when you've gone off the rails seem all the more authentic. I met a guy once who played bass instead of you at a gig in Australia.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He's living in Connemara now.
yeah. That's Stuart. We still have a relationship. I don't hold it against him. Or he doesn't hold it against me.
Could you tell us about that? Because maybe people aren't very familiar with what happened. If it's not, this is just an anecdotal thing. I'm not looking for you to confess anything.
No, I don't mind going there. I think talking about it reminds me of it, and it helps me get rid of it, because it was an utterly humiliating moment for me. You know, I had realized that I had an issue with alcohol, and I had what we professional alcoholics call in the business, I had cold turkeyed and white knuckled not drinking, and I'd been doing really, really well. And we were in Australia, and we were going to be filming the show. It was the Zoo TV show, and I thought, God, I've done so well. You know, this was the night before we were doing it. I thought, I might have a glass of wine. We're in Australia, you know, they do great wine here. So I had a glass of wine. I said, I'll have another glass of wine. I don't know what happened after that, but I know that about 3 days later, I woke up, and I had not turned up for a gig in a stadium that was being filmed, a lot of money resting on it, a lot of jeopardy. I had you know, let the guys down, the three guys who had stood by me since the age of 16 and 17. I mean, I'm sure it was unimaginable to them that that could have happened. I'd let down the audience. I'd let down the road crew. It was not a great place to be. And I mean, if ever there was a moment of realization where you wake up and you go, I have a problem and it's bigger than me and I need some help, that was it. And, you know, it arm wrestled me to the ground. I even in spite of that, there was a little bit of me that thought, no, I'm going to be all right, you know. And I had, you know, I could have lost everything. I'd thrown everything away at that point. And the good news is that actually people did forgive me. I did learn from the mistakes. I did take my issues responsibly, or I took responsibility for my issues. And I'd love to say that it was plain sailing from that point on. It really wasn't. It was a struggle, but I'm really glad I had the struggle. I'm really glad I came through it. I'm really glad I'm here. I'm able to talk to you about it, because the alternative would have been a lot worse.
Yeah. You have to be able to, though, even though it was a high pressure situation with a lot of jeopardy in it, I mean, it's great to arrive in a place where you can say it was okay and forgive yourself and kind of go, and, you know, rather than punishing yourself for something that happened 30 years ago.
You know, how we learn, I guess, for me, learning is how you get over these things. You know, perfection is a great thing to seek, but I don't think it exists. And it's how we deal with the imperfections, how we get over them, how we deal with the failures in relationships. That's the real struggle.
Yeah. It's thank you, because you didn't have to come on this television show. It's not like this is a make or break interview for you and the band. So I want to thank you so much for your the kindness and generosity in coming on the show, but the heartfelt kindness and generosity in speaking. And it's been an absolute pleasure listening. Thank you so much for coming on to the show.
Thank you very much.